All right, everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. This is Smirking on Reviews, and this is Rob doing them. The doy. So we are back with another episode of season 1 of The Man in the High Castle. We're on episode 3, The Illustrated Woman. If you've not seen the episode, please go watch it, and then come on back for my silly little opinion on it. Again, this is another good episode, but this one has a lot more setup for the consequences of the past two episodes, uh, building towards what will be the bigger arcs of the rest of the season. So, I didn't take any notes. I just finished it. This is like a good episode, like I said, but little moments. We have some really cool things in here, and then we got like a lot of just exposition going on. So I'm just gonna try to break it down into certain sections to make it easier for myself a little bit. So first, I'm going to talk about the Japanese. Their prince and princess has come to San Francisco to kind of on a little tour of their sovereign nation of Japan or whatever in America. Um, and it's really cool to see that the prince realizes that they're just kind of waiting out the clock here. They realize he feels like everything that they're doing here now is just basically a show. That while the Nazis are basically tightening their grip on everything, the Japanese have just been kind of going along and just happy to, like they won, so they're just going on with their lives. Even though there's like America now is just a new part of the Japanese world, and they're just kind of acclimating the rest of America, their section of America, into Japanese lifestyle, while the Nazis are basically, forcing everything, like tightening. Not that the Japanese aren't forcing, but they're much more, you know, polite in most ways. I mean, they can be pretty damn harsh too, because they also kind of fear the Nazis, and not just that, but they've got some guys in there that are pretty hardcore, like that inspector and everything. But this prince, at least, for being somebody, like high up in their royalty, he kind of sees the writing on the wall. That it's pretty much just a matter of time before the Nazis, try to take everything. And that, the people working for the emperor, his dad, are basically just, you know, they're looking out for themselves. They're not looking out for the nation. So that's a pretty interesting thing. We got more Tagomi and what looks to me like kind of his own kind of terrorist plan. It's I forget some of the details, even though I've seen this before. But I only saw each season only once, so I do miss things too. So even though I kind of have some of the highlights in my head, I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, him and his Nazi friend that are working together, they pretty much they sound like they're in cahoots to do something. It sounds kind of like a terrorist plot. I mean, what they would consider, the Nazis would consider terrorism. But it's really interesting to see where this is going to go. But it all seems to be happening at this press conference, or like where the prince is gonna talk to his people. It all seems to be coming to this place, and the Nazis don't want it to happen. They've been getting information, sort of, that something might happen here, but the Japanese are just like, no, we're gonna do it. We're gonna talk to our people. We'll have security. Don't worry about us. So it's time to like it's gonna be something to pay attention to coming up. Now let's jump over to Mr. John Smith and his Nazi guys, and now they're still trying to find out who the mole in their system is. They have a guy the guy that he didn't kill. They gave him LSD, which is funny. It's pretty messed up. At like Obergruppenheimer or Führer John Smith. I gotta just call him John Smith. Is that okay? Because this Obergruppenführer stuff is just gonna keep driving me nuts. He's having none of this. Like I love how they this is like a new, kind of uh, interrogation to open up the windows in your mind so you're free and you're not worried, you're not scared. But John Smith don't give a fuck about that. He just wants the information. He doesn't need a song and dance. He'd be happy to just beat it out of the guy. And since they almost killed him, he takes this kind of like offensive because um, it's just he's a hardcore motherfucker. He doesn't he doesn't want to get he just wants to get to A to B. He doesn't want a bunch of complications to find out who the rat is. So even though it's kind of an interesting scene, it's almost pointless because he just leaves. He just says, hey, when this fantasy's over, come get me. So when it does wear off, and he does get a name, and he names a guy, and they put the guy in there. And here's the thing: this scene is supposed to create tension because the guy that's named is saying it's a lie. But here's the thing, okay? For myself at least, this creates no tension because I have no problem seeing a Nazi have a gun to another Nazi's head and threaten to blow his brains out. That to me is a win-win situation. So to me, it's not tense. If that person was somebody that we cared about, then it'd be like, oh, shit. But no, I mean, and in fact, when they find out it's a lie, I mean, the guy that lied, the guy who tried to kill John Smith, for him it's a win-win. Like, as many Nazis as he can take out. So it just seemed a little like, the way that they were filming the scene was really supposed to be tense. But if you don't give a shit if the guy lives or dies, where's the tension? Anyway, that's pretty much it for Mr. Smith's side of things. They just got to keep looking for the informant. Now let's jump over to Frank, who, after last episode, losing his sister and her kids, now has to come home. His place is trashed. And he has to go. I mean, like, he just gets home. And now he has to go identify the bodies. And, they got, like, another dude who looks like he stepped right out of a Hitler youth camp. Take him there, and you see the dead kids and the wife. And it's just, like, or the sister and the kids. And it's heartbreaking. And for some darn reason, it was just I know that his name is Frank, and I was like, man, okay, this is the kind of thing that when you see this and you have this kind of thing done to you, this is the kind of thing that turns people into the Punisher. And I had forgotten at the time that this guy's name is Frank and the Punisher's name is Frank, but this is the kind of thing that turns a guy into somebody like the Punisher, who just you lose your family. And you just, in stories anyway, okay? Not everybody who loses their family turns into a fucking psycho vigilante. But I'm just saying, for the sake of television, this is that inciting incident that usually pushes people over the edge to violent ends. And it definitely, by the end of this, looks like that's where it's headed. It's also really sad that, Frank then has to tell his brother-in-law about his sister, about his wife and kids. They're just dead. He's coming home from a trip and they're just gone. Like, one day they're there and the next day they're just not. There's no explanation. And of course the guy takes it as well as you'd think. And then even so much as it goes back to Frank after he tells him to get the hell away from him. He comes to his house to, yell at him some more because of blaming it on Juliana here. And, he's not wrong. I mean, this all started because of something that Trudy did, and they all got sucked in. But it's not Frank's fault. It really, in the end, isn't anybody's fault but the people that killed them. But you can't tell that to a husband and a father. You just can't. It's just too hard. And that's one of the things that's just makes it more heartbreaking, because this kind of thing feels really real. And it just keeps pushing Frank, and they keep showing the prince. And, it's a little on the nose where they're headed with this. You can tell that that's going to be where Frank's focus is going to be on. When he finally does go back to work, first he has a conversation with Juliana, who I can't believe actually calls him again after the Japanese answered the phone. And she freaked out and hung up. I don't know if I'd ever call back, because it would just feel like it's compromised. But maybe she just took a risk. I guess she's across the country. He answers, and it goes about as well as it, normally, as it would. She left him, and all this shit happened because of it. Because she took off, because of all these things. Now, his sister, her kids, they're all dead. He's devastated. He's been tortured. He doesn't even know what for, really. So the phone call does not go well. And then that leads to, in the end, Frank going back to work, working on a gun that is not a replica. He is ready to go to work. So again, he's ready for revenge. Nicest, and Rupert, I think his name is Rupert Evans. I think I said that before. The guy from Hellboy. I don't want to keep referring to that, but that's still what I remember it from. It's nice to see him, getting something meaty to do here instead of just being the boyfriend who had this bad shit happen to him. It's now, what does he do after the bad stuff has happened? So now we get to Juliana and Joe's story, where they're dealing with the aftermath of killing the guy that was going to kill her. He's a Nazi. And they're trying to figure out how to best get out of town. And, he just wants to bail, but she's like, no, we got to, space this out. We don't want too many people to just draw attention to us, making us, seem like we were together. If you leave and then I leave later, they might not put two and two together, which is smarter than just taking off together. But it doesn't really work out that well, because this guy, played by Burn Gorman, who I like a lot. He's from Torchwood, Game of Thrones. He's been in things that I didn't like, but it wasn't his fault, like Crimson Peak and Pacific Rising. He's been all over the place. Really like him on Game of Thrones. He's a really good bad guy in that. But in this, he plays this bounty hunter called the Marshal. He calls himself the Marshal, who's basically what would be he's a psychopath. And if he didn't have this job, I'm pretty sure he'd be a serial killer with, how he likes to collect fingers and put them in little jars. He's looking for the origami guy who they killed, or, defended against and died. And so he's doing his whole thing, which is, in this situation, is a little hammy and over the top for kind of a grounded show. This guy is kind of the Old West villain, the guy who runs into town and scares everybody. I wouldn't be that scared of this guy, because he's a bounty hunter. Okay? Nobody gives a shit what happens to a bounty hunter. He's like a mercenary. Okay? Even if he has ties to the Nazis, he gets paid to kill people for the Nazis. So in the end, if this guy just disappeared, or somebody just blew him away, it kind of comes with the territory. So the whole fear that he kind of has over this town, kind of right away, is a little unbelievable and a little, just, it doesn't fit the tone of the show, but still it's an interesting character. He's kind of fun. He's definitely broader and less serious, more of a cartoon than the rest of the characters. So it's kind of funny to watch this guy chew scenery. But he's, they're freaking out now because this guy's in town, and they've got to try to, hide the body. In the meantime, he finds the bookstore guy and kills him, hangs him. And this is where I'm talking, where he tells the whole town to, keep him hanging there. Or, or what? So, I know he can hurt people, but there's a whole town full of people. You're telling me that, but whatever, I digress. So we get all these things that they're trying to cover the things up, and Joe and Juliana are having more heart-to-hearts, and you can tell that it's kind of changing Joe's perspective a little bit, but you don't know how much because he's still taking orders from John Smith. But he, the longer he's with Juliana, the more things are bound to change for him. I mean, you can kind of see where this is going anyway. But how far and how, like even in the future, season 3, all those of you who've seen it and remember, more, the broad strokes, like how much further is this going to go? Anyway, so they get everything tied up, loose ends. This guy's chewing more scenery, threatening people, yada, yada, yada. They come back to town to leave. They're getting ready to go, and they find that the list where this guy had been torturing people, the origami guy, and her name was on it. Well, Trudy's name was on it, and Lem Washington, who is the cook. So they're going back to talk to him. In the meantime, Marshall shows up and starts blasting away the truck, and Juliana gets out, runs, hides, and it ends with him just shooting open the door that she went in. And that's it. That's definitely a cliffhanger-esque episode. Really makes you want to check out the next episode, but that's where we leave it. Like I said, it's a pretty good episode, but again, it's setting up, all the consequences from the first 2 episodes are being, thrown at us to where we're going to go for the rest of the show. Everything is getting set up now. The first 2 episodes were kind of like a pilot to get you really hooked in, to have some really crazy stuff happen. And now we've got the, next 5, 6, 7 episodes to play out the storyline for season 1, and it starts here. So anyway, that's about it, and I can't wait to do the next one. I'm trying to figure out where the illustrated woman comes in, unless it was just a picture of Juliana that the Marshal found. I can't remember. There's got to be something else in there. I didn't look it up. If anybody else can figure it out, put it in the comment section. Speaking of, if you like this video, please hit the like button. Subscribers, we hit 170 today, so yeah. Share, comment, hit the bell. You'll know when I make these videos. I don't know when I'll be making the next one because I gotta work late tomorrow. I might make one in the morning before I go to work. I don't know. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure when. At some point this weekend, I'll get more of these up. But if you look at the channel, we've got more stuff. I may be doing a Walking Dead video tonight. Gotta get myself psyched up for that. It is kind of late. So anyway, this is Rob for Smirking Game Reviews saying we'll see you on the next episode of The Man in High Castle or on any of my other videos. So have a good night, and we will see you next time.